Hi guys, welcome back to the Cozy Corner. Today I am filming my November challenge roundup. November was really busy, so it did overflow slightly into December. So this video again is going out later than I wanted to, but I did get there. So my November challenge was reading books recommended by the improv comedy group Shoot from the Hip. I've been lucky enough to meet the members from Shoot from the Hip a handful of times, and they are the loveliest bunch of guys you will ever meet. Like, they are so kind and patient and just so generous with their time. I could go on gushing about them for ages, but I won't. Anyway, when I met them a couple of times ago, I asked them for book recommendations, and they each gave me some books to read, and I set myself the challenge in November of reading them all, and now I'm about to do a review on them. So the first recommendations are from the terrific Tom Mayo, and he recommended that I read The Man Who Was Thursday by G.K. Chesterton. I wasn't sure when I first started reading this book that I was going to enjoy it. I found it a little bit hard to follow, but then I think it was around chapter 4 or 5, it just suddenly clicked and I understood the storyline, and I did actually really enjoy it. I think I gave it a 3.5 stars. It was nice and short. I read it in one sitting. It's kind of like a detective crossed with sci-fi. Yeah, it was pretty decent. Not my favourite book I've read, but it was a good start. The next recommendation by Tom was, I'm so glad he recommended this book to me because it was a 6-star read and I absolutely loved it, and it is now one of my favourite books I've ever read, and that was Daniel Keyes' Flowers for Algernon. Oh my goodness, I finished this book, like, I think this is the second book that was recommended that I read, and so I finished it like 3.5 weeks ago, and I still think about it every day. And there are very few books that I thought about every single day since I read them, but this is one of them. And also, how beautiful is that cover? It made me reflect on how society treats people with low IQs, but also how they treat people with extremely high IQs. So the premises of the story is Charlie Gordon, a floor sweeper born with an unusually low IQ, has been chosen as the perfect subject for an experimental surgery that doctors hope will increase his intelligence, a procedure that will be highly successful when tested on a lab mouse called Algernon. All Charlie wants is to be smart and have friends, but the treatment turns him into a genius. Then Algernon begins to fade. What will become of Charlie? I won't give any spoilers, but the timeline of what happens to Charlie was very touching. And as I said, yeah, 6 stars, absolutely love this. Thank you so much, Tom, for recommending this, because absolutely loved that one. The next person or member of the group to recommend me books is the superb Sam Russell. The first book that Sam recommended was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I read this probably 8 years ago, and when I read it I wasn't really into it. I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't really understand what was going on, but I reread it and absolutely loved it. The paranoid android made me laugh so much. I'm not really into sci-fi, I'm not really into dystopia, but I did really enjoy this. Did I read it? Yes, I did read it. Did I enjoy it enough to read the rest of the series, because this is book 1? Probably not. But would I reread this book again? Probably yes. I did yeah, I just found it really funny and quite entertaining. So I gave this one a 4-star. So thank you, Sam, for that one. The second book that Sam recommended, I did as an audiobook because I didn't physically have it, and I could only, for some reason, I could only find special editions and it was quite expensive, but I did find it on my library app as an audiobook, and that book is J.R. Tolkien's wow, the simil. Do you know what? I'm just gonna put a picture here of the book cover, and everybody can read the title because I clearly can't pronounce it. Total short circuit of the brain there. Apologies for that. Anyway, this book, I was so confused. Okay, I've never read The Hobbit, I've never read Lord of the Rings, I've never even watched Lord of the Rings, like the whole movie. It's been on TV and I've caught bits of it. It's not really my vibe. But I persevered and I listened to the whole audiobook. There were so many names that sounded very, very similar to one another. I got so confused. I didn't know who anybody was, where anybody was, where was where. I got really, really confused. I don't know what to say. I was just really confused. But I understand that that's a me problem, not the book's problem. So I did give it a 2-star. But maybe a bit later down the line, I will read The Lord of the Rings, and then maybe things will start to make a bit more sense. But unfortunately, that one wasn't for me. Yeah, moving on. Next up was the lovely Luke Manning. These boys, honestly, I can't even. And Luke recommended that I read George Orwell, 1984. Now, a lot of you will know, because I've mentioned before, this is a book that I've actually DNF'd twice. Okay? Twice. So when Luke recommended this, my heart did break a little bit, because I was like, oh, I don't want to have to DNF it again. But I persevered. And then the more I persevered and the further on I got, the more I actually understood the story and the more it started to make sense. So I did finish it. Thank you. Yes. Very proud of myself. I did finish it. And it was nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought I was not going to enjoy it at all. And as I said, I honestly thought I was going to DNF in it. So I give it a 3-star. Would I read it again? Not immediately. But that's not to say that I would never read it again, but just further down the line. So thank you, Luke, for making me persevere with that one and actually managing to finish it. The second book that Luke recommended that I read was an absolute brick. It is 500 and something pages, 519 pages, and that is Joseph Heller's Catch-22. This book, I have such mixed feelings about this book. There were chapters when I thought I was there. I was with the storyline. I understood what was happening. I got who the characters were. And then the next chapter, or the chapter after that, I had no idea what was going on, how people even got there. Can somebody chime in below? Are there time jumps in this? Is it a story where we go back and forth in time? Or is it just one continuous timeline? I'm so confused. Yeah. I also didn't really like the way women were portrayed in this. But saying that, am I glad I read it? Yes. Would I read it again? Probably not. But I'm glad I persevered with it. It was a stretch. I think it was probably took me about 20 hours. give or take, to read this, which for me is quite a long time. But we made it to the end. So I gave this 2.5 stars. Sorry, Luke, but I did read 1984. I hope you're proud of me. Which brings us to the always amazing AJ. Now, before I asked AJ to recommend me a book, I knew that from previous shows and interviews and just speaking to him that he wasn't the biggest fan of reading, which is totally fine. So I wasn't really sure what the recommendation was going to be. Quite honestly, I was expecting like a comic or a graphic novel, but AJ recommended Impro by Keith Johnston. Well played, AJ. Well played. The dude recommended I read a freaking textbook. Okay, so this textbook is all about learning to do improv comedy and just tips and yeah, I'm enjoying it. I haven't quite finished it yet. It is a book that I'm dipping in and out of, but I have tabbed a few pages, a few tips, a few recommendations. It's a really interesting read, but I couldn't find it brand new, so I had to order it secondhand. And when I ordered it, I was like, oh, I'm not sure what to expect. And then when it arrived and I flicked through, I was like, well done, AJ. Nicely played. Yeah, so I'm reading an improv comedy book, which might be beneficial for the viewers because maybe my videos will come increasingly more funny after I finish reading this. Who knows? As I said, I haven't finished reading it yet. I'm dipping in and out of it as I go because it is quite a heavy read. Not as emotional heavy, but just a lot of information to take in. But so far I'm really enjoying it, and I'm going to give it, for what I've read, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars so far. And that was all the books that I got recommended. I'm super glad that I did it. I'm super glad that I asked them. I'm so grateful that they gave up the time to speak with me and with all of the fans after the shows. There are books I'm glad that I finished and never have to read again. And there are books I'm so glad that I read because they have become some of my favourites. So thank you so much to the members of Shoot From The Hip for recommending those books. Thanks guys for joining me on this little review of my November/beginning of December reading challenge, and I will see you again soon. Bye!